Ramble Road, Part 3. The journey shown, only half of this being in the footage, at which time we arrive at the destination. As with last time, first a poem. As time stood still, it must now begin again, moving on at a familiar pace. The day turns to night, the bird song quietens, and is replaced by the chirp of cricket wing. They who gathered now wander home, a sense of closure, an echo of time floating about, still and calm. Bring forward your hopes, and bring forth those promises. Let them wash through the edges of the inevitable. Take pride in that which binds us. Accept the pain that denies us. Joy. Forever is not so long. It is better than never, and can be replaced with song. Our memories sing in harmony. All parts make a whole. An unbreakable completeness, a timeless tribute. See you again. I smile for you now. Love, your friend. This is for you all, but it is very special for me today. Make each moment count. Don't be left saying, if only I'd had time. And that was a poem of reflection, a poem of mourning, a poem that's been used before in my life. While we travel down this road, it is a thing of quite conflicting poignancy, for what we have in front of us is the result of 170 years of destruction of forest. The beginning showed a map with lots of pasture and bush line, and 170 years ago that pasture was itself bush. Upon the arrival of European settlers to this country, New Zealand, to this island, the North Island, and to this region, Taranaki, the trees began to fall. And great promise was brought for those people that did this. They came for new beginnings, came for the promise of a new land, new opportunity. They arrived here to find much work ahead of them to what they had envisaged. They came to find that they weren't necessarily expected or wanted by those who already lived here. From these beginnings, there is much convoluted upset. It seems to continue, and the 170 years has cemented people into their sides of the arguments that exist. Such a tough terrain. The early pioneers became hardened. You had to be to live in this environment. It was unforgiving. As you will see in many of the bush videos, the denseness of the bush, it's impenetrable. Yet all is forgotten. So many people forget to even consider that this road used to be just bush, that all these fields were bush and then burnt, killing fields of trees, and all that's regrown has been placed here by later hands. Pine trees are not native to this country. The hope in this video is to talk about that which we do while we are here, our legacies, the focus of our day, and how often we are caught up in insignificant drama, and how that insignificant drama can make us forget what we were doing, what we should be doing, and make us blind to our collective contributions to the map, the footprints we leave behind. I wish to highlight the sometimes carelessness of our lives, and that it seems to be the common condition that we're drawn into a continuation of the same old thing, and that perhaps when we fast forward and look back, we wonder why we even bothered with much of our dramas. For what we leave behind may just be empty spaces on the map. I have no answers. Again, I'm just trying to point out how presence of mind to step back and look at ourselves as individuals and as groups, and to try to formulate the dynamic that creates this, try to understand how we forget how things have changed, and yet they seem to stay the same in other ways. The place that we're going to is an old site, a historic site, one of the oldest Maori pa's in the region, and one of the oldest in the country. It's forgotten. It is overgrown, almost in a disrespectful kind of way. Several times there's been working bees to try to restore it. Some decades ago it was even used as a rubbish dump, and a rubbish dump for hospital waste nonetheless. Layers of appalling trespassing This little township is called Stratford. It is here where you can turn to go to a forest on the mountain, which will be linked. The Enchanted Forest. One of the most beautiful forests you'll ever see. To the left, which is the east, there will be another video which has already been put up on the link near the start of the video. This is our reality now. Where we're going to was somebody else's reality then. Who knows what concerns those people had? Society was developed in the way that it chose to be, and you can bet nobody considered that this is what would become of then, the now, which is now. And the same goes for here and now. What will become of this? As we go through our lives, day to day, filling in time, chasing concerns, seeking entertainment, being offended, we gauge whether we've had a full life. But maybe there's a snapshot of how many trees there were when we were born, which could be put next to a snapshot of how many there were when we die. What have we really contributed? They say our children are our legacies. If we do not have children, then we can choose another legacy. Or perhaps we don't. Perhaps we have our own destiny choose us. Sometimes we're in control. Perhaps we never are in control of the destiny. We may have hopes, and these hopes might be just an extension of the confusion while people's heads are down thinking about money, thinking about this civilization, and reflects back onto the last question in the last episode of what really matters. At the end of the day, what have we left behind? Are we still wrapped up in our own concerns, not thinking about what I'm trying to lay out on this map? So many petty things to fill in time. I'm not saying that everything should be purposeful and solemn, and nothing that is useless should be entered upon. But I often feel that people are so caught up in whatever it is. It's like a haze of a reality that's it's a cycle of nothing. It's, it's survival that has become aimless. What really matters is our legacies, what we do, or what we leave behind. If you can't do anything, then you leave a legacy of your children. In this society, our children seem to be largely hijacked by media, by government, by policy. Everyone seems to be so distracted that we've left the footprints to take over themselves. As we pass through this land, we can think of all of the dramas that each family has had. This particular piece of road, in case, holds a story about a feud between a family in which one side of the road became one brothers and the other side of the road became the other brothers. All these things which are superfluous and are forgotten, just like all the other stories that get forgotten. So what was it all for? The only thing that remains is the scars on the land. Who will be able to remember what it used to be like? When you consider that this has only been 170 years, and you think of older nations, and you're born into a place that's already like this, and perhaps you never give a thought of how long it took. And it can happen so quickly. And here at the destination, a past site which would have been the high point of the civilization. We see a stump, an old tree. We wonder about its tales. How old is that tree? What did it see? Now this power site was incredibly large. Up to and over 1,000 people used to live here. Surrounding the site was 5 other power sites, some of them connected by tunnels under the stream by a so-called primitive race, yet they could tunnel under rivers. Forgotten. Tales take over. Sometimes fairy tales. The link to a museum model shows you what it used to look like. So old was this site though that it had a Stone Age and a Modern Age. It was abandoned and reformed, and it was taken over by Europeans. In fact, behind that shed in the trees is another site which was a British fort. Whenever I come to places like this, I feel transported, and I sort of yearn to see what it used to be like. I feel sad for the changing of time, and I know that I still don't really understand, and that I'm perhaps making up in my head visions of the past, of what it was. Because all we have is stories. I know for sure that there may have been people who did great things, left legacies, but they were forgotten. But not so forgotten that I'm not here today talking about this place. That was the group effort. It's a time that we don't understand. Folklore says these people were warlike, but the truth of the matter was not many people died during their wars. It was more like the American Indian. It was a game, a sport, a seasonal endeavour to the degree. But even minus all of the technologies and all of the materialistic concerns of our modern world, the same human clashes existed, so much so that forts were needed, systems of protection. While I was here, I felt quite transported back into the time. I could see where the crops were grown, where the people slept. I nearly fell down a few holes, remnants of tunnels and storage holes. The astounding thing is I have no accurate information about this place. All is forgotten. I could feel a past. I could feel that there was a way of life. Felt abandoned, covered up, and to think this place has been left in the way it is. Today it is in a far better state than it used to be. Not so overgrown. The signs that you see are from the last time that it was been restored. It makes me acutely aware of our actions in our day-to-day lives, what we've contributed, and how in many ways we actively contribute to covering up our tracks, or rather we don't actively contribute to a future. We pass on our judgments, we give warnings of negativity, we seem to teach our children to forget the past, to embrace the now, to believe that the now is the only possibility. That which I'm walking through now is the part of the past. It's people's houses. It was a large community, one of the largest pa sites I've been to, all across the grass and up to those cabbage trees, the spiky ones on the hill. Just astounding to know that so many people lived here. Turu turu mokai. Translates to heads on sticks. Seems like such a simple legacy to have left in just a name. The imagination races. It can't have all been that bad. It made me think while walking through this past civilization that was full of holes. I was treading very carefully because, as you saw before, me nearly tumble into a hole. It made me think of the future and what would happen. What would it be like? Somebody in the future walking through the ruins of now. What are our dreams really worth? All that's left is stories. Each side of the story being embellished. Perhaps not on purpose. It's just the way things go. Chinese whispers. The distortions of experience. What are we teaching our children? Are we just letting somebody else deal with that? Like great monoliths, these trees, so impressive, so inviting, so beautiful. I was smiling the whole time that I was in this area. These are called cabbage trees. Called so by sailors across the Pacific. Different trees get called such because they could be eaten, often to rid off scurvy. But these trees were used for their fibre, not so much as the flax bush, but still they were used as a material. The beautiful mountain. Imagine seeing this mountain 170 years ago, when the fields were not there. Would I have appreciated it as much or in the same way? What is it that really what is it that we have in common with our ancestors? I'm sure the appreciation of beauty is one of these things. Survival, sense of need. The Po, the name for the pole, would likely represent the meeting house, the main community building, or perhaps the chief's residence in this situation right here in front of us. There were times where I could almost hear the children playing. Where I wondered what their games were and what their disciplines were what was required of the person that lived here. What was it that took up their moments of awakening? It was mixed with a sense of grief and of loss, a sense of waking up to find destruction around, a yearning to see what people of the past saw. There's no way that we could try to do that for our future generations. It seems futile to leave journals. Because what seems to matter is what's in our hearts. And we can teach that by leading by example. But all too often I don't see that happening. We don't see great examples. More often I see bickering. I see people's legacies being division, tracing the outline of division with a pencil, going round and round on the paper till it cuts through and starts digging into the table below it. Just repetition of division. Stories that are made up, distorted. Tales of convenience. People lost in their individual pursuit. Most often they know no better. They're not to blame. That beautiful mountain. This is a difficult conclusion to come to. There are no answers for all. We all have to arrive at these decisions as to what we're going to contribute. And it's often a thing we have to keep reminding ourselves of. A mountain in front of us, remains. Everything else has changed.
From the tail of the fish to the tip, money all around this world want a piece of this air. Seems like nothing, no, is gonna stop it. I know it, can feel it. Warriors, not warriors. Put your people against numbers, 'cause there ain't no souls, just empty words and some extra notes at the end of it. And Queen Bee should know. She can't see her flowers through her own tree. Yeah. Talking about our home, let it see. Ooh, hey, hey. From a boy to a man, and my memories in between. All of these I would hope my sons to see. Yeah. Ooh. But them rules, they keep on changing. I'll be if I'm gonna play that game. Pay my dues, was there on time. You give me them blues. And now they all Satan, Queen Bee with a company of warriors, not warriors. Yeah. Put your people against numbers, 'cause there ain't no souls, just empty words and some extra